Welcome, all you Sheehanites, to another episode of Sheehan is Dead Comics. Tonight, I will be interviewing Rich Acosta. He was an artist back in the day, I believe, for Marvel and DC, and he stepped away, and now he's coming back to the business. We're going to find out all about his journey getting into comics, what he was doing, and now getting back into comics, and find out some cool stuff. If you like the video, please give it a like. And I encourage you again, please like and subscribe. Check out all the cool guests we've had in the back catalog. We've had Dan DiDio, Jason Fabik, Brad Anderson, Philip Kennedy Johnson, Sandra Hope, Dr. Dre Letamendi. So without further ado, it's me and Rich Acosta. How you doing, man?
Oh, good. It's nice to see you.
You as well. Thank you. So how did you get into
surprised
comics?
You're curious about me.
No, I am. That's why I reached out, because you also seem like just a regular guy who just happened to do this. So when did you start reading comics, and when did you fall in love with it? Like, let's start there, please.
Well, my brother is much older than me, like 14 years older. So he read comics, and they were just like lying around all the time. I don't remember not having access to comics. But as soon as I could read, I was reading comics and nothing else, and it was always my dream, because I could always draw. Like, I was an artist since I could pick up a pencil.
So I was going to ask that too, because I used to do that. Like, I would go into my sister's coloring books with a crayon and draw like the Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
Or sitting in class in, like, I remember third or fourth grade being completely bored and just drawing Ghostbusters.
Art is definitely has always been like a part of me. If you can draw, that's one thing, because most people in my family can draw. Actually, all of them can draw, but none of them pursued it as a career.
Sure.
And I don't think anyone that pursues it as a career ever really feels like they have a choice.
Sure.
Yeah. It's like, it's not optional to be an artist. If you're an artist, it's just, that's what you're going to do. And then what kind of art are you going to do? You're going to, be a musician, or, you're going to be an actor, etc., or even visual arts. What kind of visual arts? But like, comics was always my thing. There was no doubt in my mind.
What was your jam? Like, what pulled you in? Was it like a certain Spider-Man, a certain Batman, a certain Hulk comic? Do you have any specific?
Dracula. Yeah. I remember, and I didn't even know it was Gene Colan. I was just a kid, right? And you don't read the credits. So, but wow, Team of Dracula just sucked me in. And I'm a kid, so anything horror is fun. And it's Dracula, but his art is just beautiful. And then when I grow up and I could actually like go back and and look at some old issues, like, oh my God, that was Gene Colan. When it meant something,
Sure.
Because I wasn't a collector really. Like, I just read comics, and then I abused them, and I didn't take good care of them. So I recently started collecting, like, more seriously about 3 years ago. Like collecting for value, and that's when I really like learned more about like the history and but when growing up, it was like whatever it was in the shop, I would look on the wall and just pick up stuff like Judge Dredd.
Did you have a local comic store, or were you at like the pharmacy, or?
Yeah, I was lucky. There was a local comic store. Well, growing up, there was no comic store like when I was like young, like in grade school. It was just, but they had it in like most shops, I think, but definitely there was a card shop, and I remember they had a rack. I love those racks. And I just spent all my money, what little allowance I had on comics.
So mentioning that about it was a card store that had the racks. That was the same thing with me. It was a card called Cardboard Sports in Patchogue, New York, on the central south shore of Long Island. And
I grew up in Long Island.
Where?
Yeah, Long Beach.
Long Beach. Okay, we were a little
South Shore,
little bit of ways, but not too far.
Yeah,
out in Patchogue. Yeah. And there was this place, Cardboard Sports, and then you walk in, and like all the cards, like from here to like an L, but on the right was the comics, and they had like a full rack. And so I used to go in there, and then they had the comics on the wall, and like the wall books. So, and just the smell when you walk in. You smell the paper, so I can relate to that. Cool.
and we took it for granted, you know.
Oh, most certainly. Most certainly.
Yeah, well, kids don't
Definitely.
have that anymore. I mean, you have to they have to have their parents bring them to a comic store, and not
Hmm.
all neighborhoods have a comic store. Even Barnes and Noble, you know, I mean, they carry like trade paperbacks, but maybe kids get into it that way too. I don't know, but that's expensive.
Yes.
That's not like buying like a $3 comic, or even like back in the day, like a 50-cent comic. You know, that's like 20 bucks or $20 to $50 a pop. That's
See, when I got into comics, it was like either a dollar or $1.25. And then I
right.
remember they went up to like $1.50, $1.75. So,
And it just kept going. Now it's like
and
six
then
bucks.
just kept going nonstop. So you're like you said, you said Tomb of Dracula sparked got your attention. And
Hmm.
so when you could go to the comic store, you would pick up things that look cool, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
Like
then bring them
anything.
home and then bring them home and draw them.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
copy it. Like, you know,
dude,
that's what kids
I
do.
I did the same thing. 11 by 14 drawing pad.
Oh
And
yeah. Wow.
yeah,
You're
I mean,
serious. That's
oh
pretty
yeah,
serious.
very much
Yeah.
so, very much so. And I remember doing that, and I mean, I've always been a DC guy, but if I saw a cool like Spider-Man or like Thor or Nova,
Yeah.
I try
Oh,
and
nice.
break that
Yeah.
down and stuff. So I totally relate to that. So when did
Yeah.
you get into did you start your first work professionally in comics? Like were you coming out of college or
Yeah.
how did you
So, well, you're in Long Island, so you know, like the Long Island Railroad, every you have easy access to the city.
yeah.
Um, and I went to FIT, but I was living at home in Long Island.
Wow,
So
so
I
you
was
were in
like,
the Fashion
yeah, I was
Institute?
commuting to college. Yeah,
Wow,
Fashion
everybody's like,
Institute
I'm
of
going to
Technology.
FIT. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And people don't know it has a great illustration program, like
I bet.
really, really good. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Now
like
you
uh
went there to get in the comics, or was that just like
Yeah. Well, I
happenstance?
mean, I uh, I was always full of myself, so I always thought I was better than I actually was. And then, but I knew I had to get better. I was just
Sure,
like, this is, you know, my work doesn't look like the pros. So I was like, I'm going to go to school for it. Um, so you know, I didn't even think about the Kubert School. I didn't even know it existed. I probably would have gone if I knew it existed. But that's hard to get to from Long Island all the way out to Jersey. Forget it.
mhm.
So I went to FIT and took illustration, and then I quickly found out I wasn't as good as I thought. There were kids out there in my class that were just phenomenal. Um, and you know, and then I really learned more about illustration than comics, but it really helped my comic work for sure. Um, and like even like the way I draw now, it's I don't I'm not really I'm not a comic artist like you know like greats. They can just like sit down, draw something in about like 10 minutes, and it's just beautiful. Like
Yeah,
it takes me a while. Like I learned how to like illustrate for book covers. So my process is much longer. Although I can bang something out if I want, but it's not going to look anywhere near as good as like you know John Buscema.
of
Yeah,
course, of course. There is right now. I'm in a lull in
yeah.
drawing, just in doodling. I haven't really tried to draw anything seriously in like probably like 6 years, because
Mm,
I sit here and I just get overly neurotic. And
hmm.
I'm like, why
Right.
isn't this coming out like that? It's just an elbow
Hmm.
or it's just a shoulder.
Right.
No, it's like what's and I got to take my hand and like shake it. Like what's wrong? And it drives me insane. Like it
Yeah.
really like it's like so.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Like
Mhm.
um I drew like some concept covers, and that was easy because I've drawn Daredevil so many times. It's just like it's like nothing. But then when I did my first cover for Blue Shack, they had me draw a dinosaur. I was like, I have never drawn a dinosaur.
Sure, sure. Well,
And I was freaking out. I was like, I don't I may the last time I drew a dinosaur I was 7 maybe. And
yeah.
it wasn't beautiful. I was just like,
uh,
okay, and then I figured it out. But
Sure. Well, let's keep it on. Let's back it up. So
yeah,
you're in FIT
yeah.
and you graduated and then got into comics, and like how did you find out? Did you go to a Comic Con with a portfolio? Like how did all that come about?
yeah, like my work at FIT, they make you do all the foundation stuff, but like for my painting courses, I always drew like comics. Like, I was just like, maybe should try to see if I can like, you know, paint as good as Alex Ross. And no way, I suck at painting.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
learned the hard way. It's a lot harder than I thought. But yeah, I drew like a Doctor Doom painting, and it was terrible. Really, I didn't put that in my portfolio. But yeah, I went to New York Comic Con like when it was cool. I don't, it's just morphed into something weird.
So around what
When
year would that
when it
have
was
been?
just comic guys.
Sure. And what
Yeah,
year would that Comic Con have been at where you submitted your portfolio
90.
and then they were like, you got work?
Yeah, so 93. I went. Pretty sure it's like 90. Yeah, in 93, I went to New York Comic Con and I met Rich Buckler. Like he had this like big booth. It was huge, and all the guys in the studio were selling their prints, and this is like really beautiful stuff. Um, and shamefully, I didn't even know who Rich Buckler was, but I liked his work, so I saw there. So I walked up and I showed my book to everybody that would look at it, and he looked at my book and he was just like, "You want to join?" I said, "Yes, of course." So I joined his studios called Visage Studios. So it's like a whole bunch of
Visage, you
kids.
say?
Visage,
Visage.
Visage.
What company was he, like an offshoot of Image or just his own thing or?
No, it was kind of like Neil Adams had Continuity Studios, but like before they published comics, they were just like they were doing like advertising art, I think.
Mhm.
And then they became Continuity, like a comic company. But before that, I think it was like a studio of artists like that worked together and had a similar style to Neil Adams.
Okay.
But everyone at Visage, we had like totally different styles from Rich Buckler, and he didn't care. But if we were helping him on a book, we'd have to like draw consistently. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. First thing I helped out with was Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. I think it was like Tops Comics. Yeah, and then we did some stuff probably shouldn't mention
Fair
because
enough.
because it's another artist, and I don't know if he wants his name put out there, but it was Image, so we're helping him out with some Image comics. But yeah, Malibu, I didn't work on that stuff. I inked Mr. T and the T Force.
What an
And I
honor.
actually got, yeah, because like all the stuff that we did, we didn't get credit for. Like
Oh, okay.
it was just fun to be there. But every now and then, I did see like one of my friends from back in the day, Brian Kong, like him and Rich Buckler and Nathaniel Pallant, another friend of mine. They worked on, I forget what it was. Maybe it was Star Brand or something for Marvel. I didn't know that. I just looked it up. And yeah, and Brian did a cover for Captain America for an annual. So yeah, I got curious, like where all my friends went, what they go on to do. Are they still doing comics? Very few are.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you're at Visage and
yeah.
then someone calls you for work at Marvel or DC, or what's the next thing that happens?
So that was 93 into 94. And I just got better at drawing because being around like Rich Buckler,
Sure.
he would show me some stuff, and just like the pressure of being around better artists. I just like had to up my game, and I was at school, so I was getting better drawing in general. So my portfolio got better around 94 to 95. Um, I took it to in 95. I went to New York Comic Con again, and I met Neil Adams and Mike Mignola, which was really cool.
Did you go to them with your work or you
Yeah,
met them
yeah,
just okay?
yeah. Just
Was
I
your
went up to
heart like
him.
out to here?
Oh my god, yeah.
Mm.
I was so nervous. It was crazy. Because he's one of my favorites. Neil Adams, Gene Colan. Those are my two big influences. Like,
Sure, sure.
And Joe Quesada for sure. Joe Quesada is my hero. Um,
So
but
they, so Neil and Mike look at your portfolio and they're like, "Hey, you should talk to so and so," or what? Like,
so Neil was looking up my portfolio, and he was thumbing through it, and he was just like not saying anything. And he looked over because Mike's like right next to him. He's like, "Hey, Mike, check this out." I was like, "What?" And Mike Mignola walks over, and he's also looking at my book, and he's like nodding his head. And then like Neil looks at me, and he gives me back my book. He's like, "We have nothing to say to you. You should be working." And I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was, yeah, I was just like, okay, I
that's like the
will.
that's like
I
the
guess I'm.
Godfather
I
of the
guess I'm
comic.
ready.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
So
that's.
so then where do you go from there? Like, did you go to another? Did you go
Uh,
to like a Marvel or DC booth in the same show, and then they hired you? Like, what? Where?
I went to all the booths. I mean, they
Okay.
had like independent publishers. I bothered everybody. And there weren't long lines back
Oh,
then.
they weren't. Okay.
It like barely a line. Like Marvel had a little line, but it wasn't like today.
Now, take me back just for a sec because I'm trying to
Yeah.
envision it. I've been to New York Comic Con as recently as last year,
Uh-huh.
and the Javits Center is like crazy, crazy busy with humanity when it's there.
Yeah.
Where do you remember where it was at that time? It was like in a
That's the
hotel, a
thing.
ballroom, or what?
I'm pretty sure it was still at Javits. I
What?
don't
Yeah.
recall it ever being because like there was the big Apple Con, and that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like
I've been to that once. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and
It's
that's on
smaller.
Seventh Avenue
Yeah,
in a hotel.
yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely in Javits. It was just
Okay,
smaller, not
cool,
as big at
cool.
all. Like maybe they just had like one hall, not like all like four or five that they have now.
They didn't take over the building like they do
Oh
now.
my god, yeah. It was it was cooler back then. It was just comics. You didn't
Yes.
have like actors, you didn't have like I don't know what else they have there. There's no anime. Anime wasn't even a thing back then.
Yeah. There's no
Not
sex workers there
I
either.
like anime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take me back. You Neil Adams and Magnola give you the blessing.
Mhm.
Um, then you take it to a bunch of places, and then did somebody offer you work on the spot, or did Marvel or DC call you and were like, "Hey, we want to talk to you again"? Like, what's next?
So, like in 95, I shopped my book everywhere. I went to like I cold called like DC editors. And a few of them agreed to see me. I cold called Marvel editors, very few. Actually, no one from Marvel let me see them. I don't think I even got in the building once. Yeah. But like Valiant, Harris,
Hmm.
Valiant definitely like what was Jesse Berdinka. So like Jesse Berdinka took my call, told me to come in, uh, and then like we hit it off. He was a super cool guy, and he gave me two pinups. One of the pinups was for visitors, like an alien. I don't know if you, but then he had it inked by Kevin Nolan, and I couldn't believe that. That was my first like professional thing. I was like, my first job, and I get inked by Kevin Nolan.
How cool is
It
that?
was incredible. Yeah, really, really cool. So yeah, I did a couple of pinups there. I did a pinup for Mark Maz, also a really great guy at Harris. I did Vampirella. That was in '96 because I was working on Marvel. I worked in the advertising department at Marvel. I was actually on staff, um, and that didn't help me. Like networking, it never helped me. I thought it would. You meet editors like as friends, and then no, that doesn't help. Or you meet artists, and you don't realize the artists are your competition.
Competition, yeah,
They are definitely not helping you because they have to eat too.
sure.
But that was okay. Yeah, I met Sean Chen and Bernard Chang over at Valiant. I never asked them for help. I wouldn't have. But we hung out at like Toronto Con and went clubbing with Rob Liefeld, which
All right. That's always like a question I try to ask is,
yeah,
have you met Rob Liefeld? So you've gone clubbing with Rob Liefeld.
yeah,
Indulge, please. Can you tell, like, was Rob, because he seems like he would be someone at 22, 23 who would be like way over the top.
yeah. I mean, I was I mean, I'm still a nobody. I was definitely a nobody, and like I was only there because Sean Chen and Bernard Chang like invited me to go. So I don't know. I'm kind of a loner, so I just like I didn't even bother to talk to him.
Okay.
But yeah, but we did. I did get introduced. He was cool. He didn't like snub me. He didn't say, "Who are you? You don't belong here."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. Yeah, but maybe like 2 words tops, and then everyone's drinking and just having a good time.
Yeah.
Toronto's a fun city.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then when did you get your first sequential work with like DC or Marvel? When did that happen?
Well, that's
That's
definitely 1998. So I started to like have doubts. But well, between then, I guess my first sequential job was when I met Joe Quesada in '96. Like, what we at Marvel, we would get like stacks of comic books. We would even get DC comics, which is weird. Um, and I love all comics, but you can't read as many as we got. So like we would take our comics, we'd go to to Jim Hanley's or Cosmic Comics. We we trade it in for credit. Of course, they're winning because the credit is whatever. But we're like, it's free for us. Who cares? And I made friends with a manager, Brian David Marshall, also a really cool guy, and he was friends with Joe Quesada. So and then he knew like I worshiped Joe Quesada. I was like he was like I so like he left being a manager. He quit being a manager. He opened up his own business like for like a Magic the Gathering kind of I guess business where people could play and buy cards
sure.
called Neutral Ground. And I went to his opening and he's like, why don't you come to the opening? Joe Quesada will be there. And Jimmy Palmiotti. I was like, he was like, I'll introduce you. I'm like, oh, of course I'm going. So I bring my portfolio, and that was, oh my God. Meeting him, I was way more nervous than when I met Neil Adams, just because the hero worship. And he looked at my book, similar reaction to Neil Adams, and he was just like, uh, come over to my place. We'll talk. So I actually got to go to his apartment quite a few times. And so I did a pinup for him for Ash. I don't think it ever got published, but it was like the best thing I ever drew in my life. I swear. I just like, this is for Joe Quesada. I am not. I'm gonna put like a million percent of myself in here.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had what was it? It was a book called 22 Brides that he was going to start on. So he gave me and Pat Lee a shot, and then so like we had to draw a cover or a pinup, and then we had to draw like 4 sequential pages. I think we got paid, pretty sure. Anyway, but unfortunately, Pat Lee, his style was much more suited. Like my style is not like I can't draw funny people. I'm not going to make people laugh with my art, and Pat Lee's got a great style for that. So
Mm-hmm.
he got selected. I didn't. But really, that's kind of my first sequential art because I think it was a paid gig that didn't get published. So
Okay.
unfortunately, and then I was kind of heartbroken that I didn't get it. I was just like, and I had doubts whether I could make a career because just too many rejections. And I'd met my hero, and even that didn't work out. And I don't, I saw Joe like years and years later. He still remembered me. I was just
Oh,
like, maybe it
wow.
was only 8 years ago, and I saw him at a con, New York Comic Con, and then the line was crazy. Holy cow! There was no getting near Joe or the Marvel booth, and I said, Joe, and then he waved by Rich. I was like, he remembers me. I was like, very cool.
Super cool.
Yeah, but so anyway, I kind of gave up, and I was thinking, well, I gotta make a living. I'm getting old. I was like already 26 years old or 25, something like that. It's like I gotta get a job. So I went back to school for graphic design because that's what I was doing at Marvel. I was actually working in the advertising department, and then learned a little bit, and then I was just like, well, at least with graphic design I can get a job, and then if I get a call from Marvel, then I'll be there. So 2 years later, I was in my junior year, and then I got a call from Jay Gardner and it was just totally out of the blue. He was like, "I have your samples. Are you open for work?" I said, "Definitely." I went
I
to the
was
office.
like,
I was
sure
like,
am.
"Yeah,
Sure
I think
am.
I went the same day." He called me. I literally just dropped everything and I went to the office because I lived in Manhattan at that time. Um, yeah, and then I asked Jay. I was just like, "How did you?" Why did you pick me? And he's just like, well, I had your samples because I mailed in samples to everybody, literally everybody, like on schedule. And he said, I kept your samples, you know, for years. He was like, I was just waiting to give you work. And then
Oh, wow.
Ariel Olivetti went on vacation and he had a spot. He was just like, yeah, it was like, I always intended to call you up. I didn't know him. He's just like, and he selected my work out of like, I don't know, thousands. So that was a big thing for me. It was more gratifying to get chosen that way than to like meet someone and be friends and oh I got a book for you. At least I know I got it the real way, Like
Sure.
I get selected because he liked my work. So I owe Jay Gardner a lot. And
Well, bless,
yeah,
bless, bless Jay Gardner. So
yeah. I wonder
what
what
did
he's
you work
doing.
on?
Daredevil 373,
Okay.
and that was in 1998. So I did all the interiors and I did the cover. The cover I begged for. Once I was done with the book, I knew he would give Ariel Olivetti the cover. So I literally begged him. I said, this could be my last book, my first and last. I said, I will do it for free. I do not care. And so he took pity on me and gave it to me. So I'm thankful for that for sure. It's not, you know, I don't think newbies ever get to do their own cover. It's like, I don't think that happens. So and he
So
liked
then,
my idea for the cover, so it worked out.
so then what happened after that? Is that when you pulled away and did something, you got into what was it? What did you do
Um,
afterward?
well, I mean, so like I was doing the book while I was in my final doing my, I had my finals. It was like in the winter in like December, and I just got really busy with school because it was really demanding. I couldn't like, I mean, my parents were spending a lot of money on SVA wasn't cheap, you know, so I finished up, and then I guess I just kind of forgot about it. I was just like, not forgot about it. I mean, the real story is my now wife was my then girlfriend, and we had a nice surprise. She got pregnant, and we got married literally like 4 months later. I had proposed to her before I even knew we even got that news, and she said, she said yes, and then she said, but let's wait. Let's wait until we graduate. I said, okay. And then 2 months later, we find out she's pregnant. So I had to drop everything and get a job, support my family. And that's really why. In my mind, before I graduated, I always intended to like still give comics a shot.
Sure.
Like maybe I would like do like freelance graphic design because you could just like do gigs, hourly in graphic design, and then I could like freelance as a comic artist. But then once I started thinking about my family, I was just like, I need benefits. First and foremost, I need medical benefits for my wife so that, she can go to the hospital. And then, it was all about the kid, my son, who's an incredible person. Yeah. And then I forgot all about comics. I traded my love for comics for my love of my family, and
No,
I wouldn't have it any other way. Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I
Yeah.
respect that. That's everything. So when did you decide to get back into comics and so I guess it would be better. What sparked that fire in you again? And then what followed that? Like what door opened for you?
So
And what year? Like are we talking like 3 years ago or 2 years ago or
yeah, very recently. I mean, so like I'm 52
you don't look
and I
it?
had thank you. So like I was counting the like years until I hit my 50s so I could have a midlife crisis. I wanted one. was like, I'm gonna do this out. Like once I hit 50, I'm doing it. But my idea of a midlife crisis was like to do all the things that I used to do, like draw comics, read comics, like just be the geek I always wanted to be. And then I looked it up. I was like, that is actually a real thing. Like, I thought like, midlife crisis is, I didn't want to like get a motorcycle and,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
kinds of
Yeah.
things. And
No,
they
no
call it
pink Cadillac or
second childhood.
anything.
Yeah, they call it second childhood. I was like, oh
Mhm.
man, it's a real thing. So I got into like collecting comics. And then I moderate a Facebook comic group, and I saw like someone posted like Gene Colan. It was like Stilt Man cover, but it didn't look like, because I'm familiar with like most of the Daredevil covers, and I was like, that doesn't look like the actual cover. I couldn't name the number, and then I find out he actually drew that in his 70s,
Wow.
and I was like, oh my God, Gene Colan redid one of his early covers in his 70s, and it was beautiful. It was way better than like most of the stuff he did on Daredevil. It was
Sure.
gorgeous. I was like, I want to do that. I was like, so I looked into my book. I was just like, yeah, all of that could have been better. So I took like different panels that I really loved, and then I just like drew it I kind of like reworked them to be covers of my issue, but like really like reimagined it and put much, much more effort into it, much like Gene Colan did. I was like, what a great idea. And he's, still acting out my midlife crisis. And someone in the Facebook group, like I posted it and they were like, wow, that's great. And he was just like, would you like to come to a Comic-Con? I'm actually going to that con in November 9th.
You want to
Like
shout it
that
out?
same, yeah, Twin Tiers Comic-Con in Horseheads. Yeah, so that guy, like, he's like, you want to come to the Comic-Con? And that was like that was early this year. I was like, yeah, sure. And then I forgot about it. He forgot about it. But then Garden State Comic-Con came up in June, and I was like, okay, I think I'll go there. So I drew more and more. I just like three Daredevil covers or like concept covers as like prints to sell, also for trade paperbacks.
Did you make yourself like one of those big pinup things on the board, like Rich Acosta, and there's like
I
Daredevil?
did.
Yeah,
I did.
awesome,
It was
dude. I
shameful.
love those.
Yeah, the banners. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm a graphic designer, so
Mhm.
I got to design trade graphics for myself.
It's
Yeah, it
awesome.
was a lot of fun, and I actually reached out to Bud LaRosa, who was my anchor for 373, and I never met him, so I looked him up. I emailed him. I said, I said, hey, we work together on 373. He was like treating me like we were old friends. I was like, this is amazing, and he did me a solid, and like inked it for much less than he normally would. But it was really cool. Like one of them, like because I have the cover for 373, the original one, and I have two children, so I can't rip it in half. So that's going to my son, and then my daughter. I'm just like, she should have something. And so like I drew like, and she's scared of like, it has Mr. Fear on it, so she doesn't like the skeleton. So I basically drew a different cover, alternate cover, and Bud inked it, so it's kind of legit. It's me and Bud back together again. So I have the original art for that, and that's gonna
Wow.
go to her.
It's
Yeah,
like full circle, man.
yeah,
Full
for
circle.
sure. I
Good,
just
good for you. And I'm glad I got you on the tip. Like you're fresh in the midst of your crisis. This is great. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so I went to Garden State Comic, and Bud LaRose. I asked Bud, "Do you want to go to the con together?" And yeah, and he had been retired for 14 years, and he was like
Wow.
super excited. And he drew stuff just for the con. Like I didn't even know he could draw, but he's got some beautiful stuff. And then I met him. We became real friends. Well, actually meeting each other face to face. So I feel quite close to him, and we're probably going to keep going to that same con every year. Just because like a lot of his old friends were there, so like they were just people like pros passing by, saying hi to him. Oh my, because they hadn't seen him in so long. It's been 14 years. So it was, if anything, like I actually had a moment. I was just like, if there's a purpose to any of this, like getting back into comics, if it was to get Bud LaRosa back into it and to have him like reconnect with his old buddies, that's good. That gives it purpose for sure.
Sure.
And so anyway, so like I'm starting to post on Twitter. I actually am like I met like I had to get like an inker and a colorist off Fiverr, and one of them was like, "Oh, let's communicate on Twitter," because I didn't even have a Twitter account. And then that didn't work out. She actually got an inking job for Image. She was like, "I can't work on your thing. I got a thing for Image." And then I'm on Twitter. I'm just like, "Oh, it's kind of cool." And there's so much good, as there's so many like pros on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I connected with Dmitry Stakovas, and he does stuff for Blue Shack. He just like finished his first book, which I'm super excited for, on Vermin. And he, he did what no other artist would have done for me. Like he introduced me to his publisher. I've never had an artist say, "Hey, let me introduce you to my publisher," and because but that was very generous of him. So if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be working again. So,
Wow.
so now, like, months later,
like it was meant to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I believe in fate for sure, and I'm enjoying it.
Sure.
Like, yeah, I mean, I worked for Harris. I worked for like Valiant. I actually reached out to the Valiant editor in chief, and it's no way to reach her.
I was going to say, who even is that now?
I forgot her name. Yeah. Anyway, and I actually reached out to every editor of Marvel. No reply. It's so much harder now than it ever was to even just get in front of somebody,
Sure.
with social media. With social media, you would think it'd be easier. But it was difficult. But that's fate. Now I'm with Blue Shack, and the beautiful thing about it is I have like the most open-ended deadline, because I have a full-time job. So if I was at Marvel or even did anything at Marvel, they'd want it the next day. I'd have to take a day off from work. I'd have to put in for a day off. I totally would. And the bus, just like, the grind, get it done in a day and get it out. But with Blue Shack, I get as much time as I need. So I get to really put quality work into it, which
that is super cool,
prefer.
man. That's super cool. And I was kind of like, I was caught off guard a couple of weeks ago when 2 or 3 weeks ago when I discovered them. It was like, oh, Jim Shooter is with us now.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, Jim Shooter, cool.
A lot of things are happening. Yeah, the publishers worked with Jim Shooter at Defiant. Like they knew each other back then. I don't know if they ever lost touch, but they've been, in touch and talking about, things that I probably can't talk about because I don't really know. But yeah, it seems like that's gonna really be huge for him. Zach Lynch, he's the publisher. He's the writer. He's the publisher. Super nice guy.
Okay, so he is the publisher because he and I've DM'd him.
Oh, okay.
We've gone back and forth, and I'm like, "What's your name, friend?" And he's like, "Zach," but he didn't say like Zach the publisher. He's like, "Oh, my name's Zach," and I'm like, "Cool." So
yeah, no,
that's a nice tidbit.
Yeah, he deserves to be. I want him to be successful, just because he's such a great guy. So yeah, I think that'll be the turning point for Blue Shack with Jim Shooter and all the talks with old Defiant friends he has. So we'll see. Yeah.
And so now you're still doing what, advertising as your full-time job, or?
I left graphic design for more money. I just chase money.
No.
So I work in regulatory, and my title is global labeling lead. So I work on packaging that all over the world for Bausch and Lomb.
Oh,
so
cool,
I literally I talk to people in Asia, South America, Europe, everywhere. It's with technology you can do that, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
like you.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't even know where you are. I'm sure
yeah.
you're not in Long Island anymore.
No, no, I'm up in Albany, New York.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
cool. Wow,
yeah.
wow.
It's a lot more. It for up here, it's busy, but it's a lot more laid back compared to Long Island.
How
So
far is Horseheads from you?
I wouldn't even know, man.
It's probably far. Yeah, New
I'd have
York is
to.
huge.
We're like by train, we're about 2.5 hours by train from Penn Station uh
Okay.
to
All right.
Albany. Driving
Yeah.
is like 4 hours,
Oh, wow.
5 hours. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
north, pretty much north. So
Yeah. Horseheads is 4.5 hours from me.
okay.
Yeah. And
Well,
Bausch and Lomb has like offices in Rochester. I have friends there, and one of them's a huge comic fan. She's going to come visit me. So
that's cool, man. That
I'm
is
going to
super cool.
bring my daughter. It'll be like a family trip. So
Sure, sure.
yeah. Yeah.
Are you going to New York Comic Con this year?
No, I avoid it like the plague. I don't even like Manhattan anymore. I go in every Saturday, but it's just Manhattan's different. It's so much
No,
different.
I try to keep it to like once a year. Probably
Yeah.
about like 7 or 8 years ago, I was all about getting my stuff signed, just just
Right.
for my
Right.
own satisfaction, not even trying to CGC anything.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like come and gone because I'm like I'm exhausted now going there, having to stand online.
Hmm.
Like you got to
Oh my
go
god.
there. Like when Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo were at the height of their Batman powers. Like,
Hmm.
dude, you would have to get there early, sit in the line, get your wristband, and just sit there and wait and wait
Hmm.
and wait and wait. And then,
Hate
but
lines.
that was just for their table in Artist Alley. Like if you
Oh
wanted
my
something, if you wanted, if they were going to have a signing at, say, the main DC booth, you would have to, get there shortly after the doors open. Then they'd give you a wristband, the color matching whoever the guy was, and you could go back at your leisure. Like if it was at 5 o'clock and, you didn't have to obviously stay there. But I
god. Hmm.
remember for like the Artist Alley ones, getting there and having to like sit there for 2 hours and just twiddle
Oh
my
my god.
thumbs. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
back in the day there was no lines. And
Yeah.
now you wait
Yeah.
online for 2 hours.
I've heard
Oh,
I don't know if you haven't
crazy.
listened to it, I highly recommend it. Is Rob Liefeld does Rob Servations.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I love how he tells the old stories. He's like, yeah, I'd stand by George Perez's table, and me and my friend, we picked him up at one Comic Con, and and we hung out with George,
That's
and
cool.
he was showing us how to draw, and this giving us tidbits, and it's like, yeah, that's definitely not happening now. So yeah,
George Perez, I didn't know actually was an assistant of Rich Buckler.
yeah, I didn't know that either.
I had no idea. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
learned so much from Rob about the particulars, like Mr. Butler, about Wiacek, Bernie
Hmm.
Wrightson, just a whole bunch of stuff. He's such a great historian. I love when
Right.
he drops tidbits, like when he goes back and reads like some of his comic beefs from like the
Hmm.
Comics Journal from the 70s or 80s, and John
Yeah.
Byrne is just torching everybody, torching
Oh, really?
Perez and everything. Just
No
wild.
way.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And he's
Comic
even he's
politics.
he's even read ones where it was like him and Todd beefing, when he got into that big
Mhm.
legal jam with when he wanted to leave Image.
Oh,
And
really?
he's reading like what Todd said and what he said. It's really cool. Like I've learned so much about Gene Colan too, how great he
Mhm.
was. So and like how John Byrne and Terry Austin were like the dynamic duo of pencils and ink.
Hmm.
And so
Right. Like
yeah.
Kirby and Sanat. Is it
Yeah,
Sanat
yeah.
or Sano? I
Yep.
never know.
And
Yeah.
then he tells a story about Kirby, how he got Fighting American. And then
Hmm.
Marvel tried to sue and all this because it was too close. It was like
Oh,
too close of a derivative, to Captain America, yada yada. But I found
yeah.
his podcast has like really been like a crash course in comic history. So
No, I'll have to check that out. I love
no, check it
listening to
out.
like
Yeah, it's just
comic podcasts.
Rob Servations. He's on like I don't know how he started. I think like 4 years ago, 4 years
Yeah,
ago, and he used to do 2 days a week up until recently. I think he does one day now, but he tells a lot of cool stories.
that's cool. Yeah, I see his posts on Twitter. He posts a lot.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
blocked me a while ago because I think I made a foot joke, and
Oh,
Rob's
yeah.
sensitive. But then I
Yeah.
I met him at Comic Con last year. I just happened to I didn't stand on line, but he was setting up, and the line was like over here, and I just kind of
Hmm.
moseyed up real fast, and I'm like, "Hey, I love the show," and he's like, "Thank you so much." Like if I would have been like, oh, by the way, you blocked me, maybe he would have unblocked me. But
Right.
it's funny. But he was really cool about it, and he did his Todd McFarlane impersonation like on the spot to me.
Oh,
He
really?
does that a lot in the
That's
podcast whenever
funny.
he talks about Todd usually. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so funny, dude. So funny. But I
Yeah.
digress. But I encourage you to
That's
check it
all right.
out.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot better. I was
Yeah,
never a fan, but like I saw like some new covers. I'm like, wow, he got better.
yeah. And he's actually
And
like,
and can draw feet now.
yes, I've seen yeah, like his what do you call him? He did Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe, and he was all about that. And I saw some of the
Yeah,
pages he posted online. I'm like, wow, this is
yeah, I
actually
like
good. And
it.
you can see
And
the
you can
feet
and you
crystal
can
clear.
still tell it's rock, it's him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all these like
Yeah.
super like,
Hmm.
like over the top poses and action and all this. So
Right.
it's funny, but it's cool. It's cool. I'm not a fan either. Like I've seen some of his early work that sold millions, and I'm like, what is this? Like how did
Yeah.
like and I'm like, Rob Liefeld has hit the cosmic lottery. So
Oh yeah, for sure.
bless his
Yeah.
heart. But he's retiring too. There's an episode where he talks about his eyes
Is
are
he?
getting bad. So he's
Oh
only going to keep
no.
this up for so long. Yeah.
Huh.
But
Yeah.
I
Maybe He
digress.
should, he should look up Bausch and Lomb. We
Yeah, you
actually
should.
have surgical products, and they'll actually implant lenses into your eyes. I think it's like for I don't think you would not you would normally do that, but I think there are special cases, which I had
Well,
no idea.
that might be another thing where you might find yourself, as you say, you believe in fate. Be like, Rob, by the way, I heard your
If I
podcast,
meet, yeah,
and
if I ever
I'm at
meet
Bosch
them,
and Lomb, and I've used
yeah.
their products too when I first got contact lenses when I was a teenager.
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I can get free contacts, but they freak me out. But I think I should get it.
That'd be
I
cool.
don't even need these glasses, but I just figure it would make it easier to see you.
Well, thank
Like
you.
like they're
I
just for like distance.
I need these glasses because otherwise I could see you and I can
Oh
see
yeah.
you and I can tell, what color your background is,
Oh,
your hair and your skin, but I can't
mhm.
like see you crisp. I'm
Yeah.
farsighted.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
I had asked my when I got these glasses, I've worn glasses forever, but I asked my latest doctor, I was like, can a farsighted person get that surgery? And he said, no, it's only nearsighted right now. I'm like, oh.
Hmm.
So
I see. I
yeah,
see.
because
Hmm.
I have friends who have gotten the LASIK and they swear by it. And I'm
Right.
like, wow. So
Yeah. You have to get it done again. So it actually probably makes sense to do it later in life as it wears off or something.
like,
So maybe yeah.
do me a solid while you're clearing out my cataracts. Can you, give me a new lens on my eyeball? I appreciate it.
Right. Just yeah.
So right now with Blue Shack,
Hmm.
you're just solely like rocking with them, or are you still open like to do other projects on the side, like maybe a pinup or like what's your
Yeah.
game plan? Like what's your goal?
Zach actually told me he's just like if you get like offers to do work from other people, take it. So I appreciate that. And someone did just reach out on Twitter, so it looks like I'm gonna do a cover for them for like a teenage vigilante thing.
That
It's kind of fun.
IDW?
No, it's a small publisher, but
Okay.
yeah, I wouldn't turn down work. I'm also not actively looking for work.
Right, because
Yeah,
considering you have your employment, this is more like satisfying an itch
right. Yeah,
from earlier.
and
Yeah.
I have my kids. I really have very little time.
Well,
But yeah,
I noticed the comics over your shoulder. What are those, all
no,
CGC? What?
yeah. My
Oh, dude, you got the Black
49 to
Spider-Man
50.
one. Is it
Yeah.
CGC?
Before.
What grade you got on it?
Oh, it's not CGC. It's
Oh,
just like
okay.
it's just in a yeah. The only CGC one is the
Okay.
FF50, but they're all raw and they're in like yeah. So,
Well,
if
it's
people
beautiful.
have issues with like slabbing, but just take it on out.
Would
It's a
you do
nice
me a
one.
favor? Would you
Mhm.
do me a favor? And if you still remember where you bought those, could you send me the link to that? Because I see so many different options, but how you opened it looks super simple.
You got to see this one. Now, if you really want it to look like a slab, This is like actually do-it-yourself slab. I think I'm like, and you can just, it's a magnetic case.
Oh,
You
cool.
see that?
Yeah.
So, but it's, yeah, and it's really heavy duty. It feels like a slab. It's got like weight.
Can those hang on the wall? Like, could you put, is there like a
Yeah,
screw spot or
yeah.
something?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
I know you can't see it, but yeah,
No. Yeah. I take your,
you can
yeah.
hang it. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that because I used to, when I first got the taste of CGC, like I got a serious itch. And then I
Mhm.
realized this isn't really doing anything for me.
Right.
And unless you have something that's, like super niche with it, like maybe a Ultimate Fallout 4 or something
Hmm.
the X-Men in the 70s or something like that. It's more like just for the sport of it, like because it looks
Right.
pretty. Because I've
Right.
experienced, like I've gotten all excited and sold them and lost money or broken even
Mm.
on some of them. I've actually
Yeah.
made more money when I've sold like out of print omnibuses, and not
Oh,
even
really?
for
Oh,
not even for business, but just because it was like, oh, I see this people are paying like 3, 4 times the amount. I still got this in the plastic. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm not collecting like that anymore with the CGC.
Yeah.
So I'm getting some of my favorite covers, some of my favorite issue covers, and I'm
Uh-huh.
getting frames. I just want to frame them and put them in my walk-in closet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that one, I'll send you that one too. I have to go in the bathroom.
Yeah. Please do.
But yeah, I love that one. I only have two of them. They're a little pricey because,
Okay.
like, yeah,
No,
like, I was trying to get the Galactus trilogy, but 48 is just ridiculous. I'm never gonna get that.
no, I know.
It's so out of my price range and budget. Forget it. I gave
Right.
up.
No, dude, I appreciate that. The one that actually got me going where I was like, I want to frame these covers is
Mhm.
um when Tom King did Heroes in Crisis. It was, I think the variant cover for number 5 is you see Jason like this, and you see the
Yeah.
shadow of the Joker's arm like this with the crowbar.
Oh, cool.
And
That's
then there was,
cool.
and then another one, the variant was for Superman. It was like the death of Superman, like the one from back in the day. It was almost like a recreation of the one where he's laying on the concrete dead and it's like all cracked around him underneath. It's in like black and white.
Mm.
So like things like that, I really want to start to collect and be like, I love this cover. So
Yeah. I don't buy new comics, but like every now and then I just go to my comic store to hang out really. And
yeah,
then like I'll walk around and I just if I buy a new comic, it's just for the cover.
yeah,
It's like, oh, that's a cool cover.
yeah,
And they're so pissed I don't read because I just read my old stuff. I don't read any new stuff.
yeah.
But
And comics, I don't know how you feel,
mhm.
but comics nowadays, I feel like DC has shown me the door and be like,
Mhm.
okay, Mr. Brewster, like we
Yeah.
appreciate your business, but you're not our target audience anymore. So
Oh, wow.
a lot of the stuff that I have are either like things I've read in singles because I sold my collection when I was in my 20s. And then
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I want to buy the graphic novel or the new deluxe or the new absolute. And that's what I
Mhm.
jam on. Like right now, I
Right.
go so far back, I'm reading the third omnibus in the Nightfall saga, Night's End. So
Oh,
like,
cool.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Because back then I like a lot of those you couldn't read sequentially because you
Mhm.
might have like on a 12 issue run, let's say, you might have issue number 1, number 6, number 9, number 4.
Yeah.
And
It's
back then it was like there was no eBay, there was no Amazon. You had to like
yeah.
God's creation to try and find something. No?
Yeah, if you missed out and it was sold out, you were out of luck.
Right. So I'm like catching up on all these awesome things. Some of the newer stuff that's come out, like this one, I have all the trade paperbacks, but they did this
Mhm.
compendium for Robin, and I
Holy
just
cow.
I just had to double dip on it
That's
just because I'm
huge.
like, oh, I love Tim Drake. So are you
Yeah.
reading anything yourself now that tickles you, like something back in the day or new or
What did I just Secret Wars? I'm trying to get through it.
yeah.
It's really hard. It's
Is
hard
that
to read.
that's the first one?
Yeah, the first one, not the second
Okay.
one.
Because yeah, okay.
Second
Yeah.
one's garbage.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm almost through. I'm at like number 10. I bought a trade paperback. I have all the originals, but yeah. And then but I'm reading the trade paperback with the Alex Ross cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool,
Yeah.
and it's Jim Shooter, so that's kind of
Yeah.
dope.
I
Yeah.
love what Shooter said like 3 months ago about the state of comics now.
Oh yeah, what do you
I
say?
He said like the creators he named specific ones that they'd be rolling over in their grave because comics,
Mm,
as you know, most people, I would hope most people who aren't blinded by any sort of affiliation would just call a spade and be like, yeah, it's more propaganda now. Like you're being preached at.
oh, right.
It's not about writing the character. It's
Yeah,
writing what I want to say through the character.
right.
And so
Yeah.
he said they'd be rolling over in their graves and comics are propaganda and they're pretty much crap now. And I'm like, preach, Jim
Mhm.
Shooter. So,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why I don't read it. I'm just like I don't want to wait, and it's like expensive
And it's
to
more
buy.
expensive. Yes.
And then I'll buy. It's like $4, and then what if I don't even like it? I'm like, I wasted $4.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do, because I still want to support my local shop,
Comic shop.
right? So and then they have like collectibles, and they allow me to make payments. That
Awesome.
49 FF49, I paid it off like $60 every 2 weeks, and then when it was done, it was done.
That's
And
awesome.
I got a new target, so I'm very, very fortunate
No,
because
that's
I'm not
cool.
throwing away my money. I mean, you buy a new comic, you spend $4. As soon as you've read it, you've wasted your $4. If you
Mm-hmm.
didn't like it,
It's a
it's
wrap.
not worth anything.
Well, that's like DC. I mentioned it to a couple of my mutuals on there with this whole all in stuff.
Mm,
To me, it's just Rebirth was awesome. Rebirth actually got me back in the comic shop for after like probably a decade and a half of not even collecting one comic. I was so
right.
into that. And
Mm,
now with this all in, it's like, all right, you're promising all these changes, but you have the same ingredients. Like
mm.
if a restaurant is redoing their menu and they're going to make better food, but they have the same staff, how are they going to make better food? You know what I mean?
Right,
So
exactly.
it's like, okay, we'll see how far it goes. But
Yeah.
have you heard of the app called Hoopla? Hoopla? Check
No,
this
never heard
out.
of
So
that.
check this out. Shout
Okay.
out to Ryan Lauer of Batman Book Club. Hoopla, Hoopla, the app.
Mhm.
You download that, enter your local library card, whatever town you're in, and
Okay.
you could read and anything about like you could
Really?
read Secret Wars, you could read Nightfall,
No
you could read Death of
way.
Superman.
Huh.
Like Tom King's recent Wonder Woman, I picked up the trade paperback because I'm a hardcore snob. I mean hardcover snob, and so I'm
Uh-huh.
trying to like read it, and the thing's flopping around in my hands, and I'm like, wait a minute, let me see if it's on Hoopla. So it's on Hoopla, and you
Oh
can, you know,
wow.
so they have stuff that's fresh, and you just, you know, you're on your iPad just like that. If you can't read something, you know, you can zoom in. So
Yeah, yeah.
try that out,
Yeah.
Hoopla.
I
It's a
bought
free
a
app
Kindle.
too.
I bought a Kindle just to read comics.
Well, yeah, give it a shot. I think you'll like it.
Oh,
And I
thank
feel
you.
like so what you're welcome. What I've done now is like anything that I want to read that they only have trade
Mhm.
paperback, I put it in my Amazon cart just to
Okay.
remind me.
All
And
right.
then I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, all right, I'm gonna put that on my Hoopla list. So
I do that at Barnes and Noble. I'll go to the sci-fi book aisle, and then I'll take a picture of a book, and then unfortunately I don't have a lot of time, so I'll list. I'll not read it, but listen to it on Audible. Audible is great because I drive a
oh,
lot.
it's
So,
super. I love Audible.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, an hour and a half to kill, you know, or about to get from here to Jersey City, and then like into the city. It's just crazy. But Audible's great, yeah.
Yeah, Audible is great. I do love it. There's what do you call them? The have you heard about the Batman Resurrections, the direct sequel to the 89 film?
No.
It's coming out or it just
Okay.
came out and it's going to be on Audible.
Mm.
And so you can listen to it because that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to read the book. I'll listen to it. So it's a direct
Mhm.
sequel, like right after the Joker dies from the first
Oh wow.
movie. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I love all the Batman movies. I've
Yeah.
seen everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
I've like when I was a kid, I read as much DC as I did Marvel. I read everything, all the indies, everything. If it was a comic, I didn't care.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
nowadays, like I've tried to ask guys, my mutuals on Twitter and or X, and I'm like, does Marvel have its own version of year one? Or like the Killing Joke, or like Dark Knight
Mm,
Returns, something that like turned the industry on its head, whether it was back then or recently, that someone who's looking to get into Marvel can read. Because the
mm,
closest thing that I've come to, it was, I don't know, like 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago now, when Marvel did One More Day and then Brand New Day. Like I
Mm-hmm.
jumped on Spider-Man from that point for like, I don't know, a year and a half. And I was actually, because I could pick up without all the continuity. And I was like, oh, okay, this is why I
Right.
like Spider-Man.
Yeah. I mean, was it Earth X was really fun. I actually knew Jim Kruger. I worked with him at Marvel. He was like a copywriter,
Okay.
and but that stuff's not canon. But it's still fun,
Mhm.
and Doug
Like
Braithwaite's an
I
awesome, awesome
bought
writer. I mean,
Daredevil,
illustrator.
Frank
Yeah.
Frank Miller's Daredevil.
Oh yeah,
I,
yeah.
I'm only like a quarter of the way through the first one. I think 181 is where he took over. Right now he's just the artist. And I
Hmm.
bought those omnibuses, and then I bought
Yeah.
all
The
the ones
Frank Miller
after
run
it.
on Daredevil. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's what got him hot over to DC, where DC, pulled out the stops to get him. So I'm collecting Marvel omnibuses, and my mother is like, when are you gonna read these? I'm like, probably when I retire, I'll catch up because I keep buying new ones. You know what I mean?
That's my plan too.
Seriously. And like I said, unless I
I'll
see
have
something,
time. Right.
if I run across something on eBay and it's like, oh, like last year, X-Men, Uncanny X-Men Volume 2 Omnibus was sold out. I
Hmm.
didn't know that. And I took mine and I sold it for like, I don't know, $220. And I only paid like
Wow.
75 because, well,
Have you ever heard of Ollie's?
I have. And my co-pilot Scott, who's normally with me, he wasn't feeling good
Yeah, yeah.
tonight. He
Oh,
goes to Ollie's and he'll send me like pictures of what he scooped up. And last year he scooped up like three of the out of print like Powers of X hardcovers.
oh
And
yeah.
he sold each one online for like $120.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, you could totally flip stuff. I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Butler Rose was like, because like we're both like Thor fans,
Yeah.
and he bought an omnibus, like a Thor, like classic one.
Hmm.
And it was like he got it for like $15. That thing was like $50. I was like,
Yes.
oh my God.
Well, I'll
He was
tell
like, you
you,
want me to get you one? I was just like, no, I don't want you to go out of your way. I should have asked him to pick me
yeah,
up.
especially for 15 bucks. I'll tell you, if you're looking for books, unless you have like a absolute favorite place, organicpricebooks.com,
Yeah.
dude, they're selling omnibuses. They sell trade paperbacks and hardcovers, but they specialize in omnibuses and
Okay.
absolute. So let's say, for instance, Nightfall Volume 1 just reprinted a few months ago,
Yeah.
omnibus retails for 150. They were selling it for 90.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's other books that I've saved like
Wow.
$80 on. And then each dollar that you spend, you get points. And like I'll get $10 coupons and $20 coupons and throw it on my next purchase. And the guys are really good. Like they're nice people. Try that
I
organicpricebooks.com if you want a good
organic
break.
price books. Okay.
And
Cool.
they do free shipping, media mail. So anything over $50, they do media mail. So there's no extra charge for shipping unless you want to do priority. So is there anything else that you want to throw out there while we're together?
No,
All right. Well, hey, it's
I'm
a
doing
good
I'm doing like a podcast like interview. Like he actually did a Daredevil review of 372 to 375, and I'm in between there because like it's Halloween and Mr. Fear is kind of Halloweenish.
yeah,
And then one of my friends on Twitter was just like, "Oh, Richie did 373," and he was just like, "That'll be interesting."
that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I applaud you and appreciate you.
But thank you so much for having me.
All right, buddy. I wish you nothing but the best. Good night.